My wife always had trouble making friends. She witnessed something very traumatic when she was a child, so she grew up with adoptive parents that did their best to help her heal and cope with that. When I met her in school, I pretty much took her under my wing. I became her unofficial protector and knew by the time we graduated that I wanted to marry her. At the time of this story, we were married for 4 years and had a son that was 2. She left her boring corporate business job to start her own daycare service in our house. I had a strong work ethic like my father, so since I can remember, I was saving up for my future. That's what helped me to buy us our marital home. My wife took pictures of the beautiful space, organized with toys that were just asking to be played with. She posted them on her daycare's business page, and before we knew it, she was responsible for 6 children while their parents worked. I came home one day, and she told me she became acquaintances with one of the parents who dropped off their child, so she wanted to go on a double date with her and her spouse. I agreed because I was glad my wife made a friend, and it felt like this could only make her happy. We got a babysitter and met 2 people at a club in town. It was obvious that the man introduced his girlfriend to my wife, contrary to my wife's saying she met a woman friend. She introduced me to them, and we all started chit-chatting at a table. It started out fine, but after a while it was just my wife and AP that continued talking to each other. His girlfriend, Lotus, and I became quiet, simply watching them talk and laugh. They tried to look at us too, like we were included, but it was just them talking. It got to the point where we wanted to leave, but my wife and AP ordered dessert and more drinks. When they were done with those, I stood up to leave, thanking them for a fun night. My wife objected and said they wanted to dance now. I said I didn't feel up to dancing and I'd like us to go home now. She suggested I go home without her and come pick her up later. This ticked me off beyond words. Lotus spoke up to tell AP she was ready to go home as well. He told her he wanted to stay and dance. Lotus looked at me like she needed help, and my wife only went out onto the dance floor. I was so upset, but I wasn't going to be immature about this and physically drag my wife back to the car like I wanted to. Instead, I offered Lotus a ride home, and she accepted. It was awkward and upsetting to leave without our significant others. I asked her what we should do about them, wondering if this was grounds for breaking up. She said she didn't know, but also didn't want to jump to such a big decision. They had a 4-year-old daughter and had been living together for 7 years, longer than I was married. We each waited in our respective homes for any sign of them. We exchanged numbers in case there was any development the other should know about. My wife got home an hour later and insincerely apologized to me. She apologized for wanting to stay longer and have more fun, but then she referred to me and Lotus as party poopers. I told her that was the worst apology ever. That instead, she should be sorry for disrespecting me, flirting with someone else, and choosing to stay with him over me. I asked her how I was supposed to know if she cheated on me or not. She just shrugged and said I'd know for sure if I would have stayed with them. When she saw my face turn red with fury, she apologized and said she really wouldn't jeopardize her daycare business or our marriage. She said her daycare business first, before me. Even so, she seemed to be genuinely reassuring me that nothing happened and she just wanted to have a night of fun after working with kids all week. I relaxed for a few days and thought life went back to normal. I texted Lotus that it seemed like everything turned out fine. Turns out I spoke too soon though, because it wasn't more than 2 weeks before my wife wanted to go back out again. This time, without me. I asked her why she didn't want me to go, and she said it was because I didn't have fun the last time. I became mad and asked who she was going with. She named 3 girl names I didn't recognize. I didn't believe any of them even existed. I told her no, I didn't want her to go. She left anyway. 7 minutes later, someone was knocking at my door. It was Lotus in tears. She demanded to know where my wife went because AP was going to meet her. She overheard him on the phone, telling my wife all the naughty, highly inappropriate things he wanted to do to her. When she confronted him about it, he stormed out of the house, saying he didn't want to be with her anymore if she was going to be so nosy. We started driving around town, checking parking lots for their cars. Before long, my wife texted me, telling me she was at a place we already checked, and asked me to meet her there. Everything about this text was fishy, and I knew it was a ruse to get me to leave the house. I told her I would and waited a bit before driving back with Lotus. When we got there, my wife's car was in the driveway. I unlocked the front door with Lotus holding her breath, and as soon as it opened, we found them having sex. They were shocked and panicked, as one would expect. My wife just started repeatedly saying no as she got dressed. When I tried to speak, she screamed at Lotus and I to leave. A giant verbal fight ensued amongst the four of us, where I tried to demand my wife and AP be the ones to leave because I bought the house. My wife said it was her house now, and if I didn't leave, she'd tell everyone that I took advantage of her. My jaw dropped. I couldn't believe how evil she was. She was completely inconsiderate of me and was even willing to lie to get what she wanted. Lotus was equally shocked at both of their behavior, and the two of us eventually walked outside. She offered to let me stay at her house, since AP didn't live there anymore, and she also volunteered to be a witness to my wife's infidelity in court. I took her up on that offer, and it worked like a charm. My wife was ordered to move out of the house, and we each got shared custody of our son. I know her heart broke when our son cried with her, wondering why she didn't live in the same house anymore. Her infidelity, selfishness, and immaturity would bring more than just her son's tears and confusion. She moved into the only place she and AP could find to rent, which wasn't very nice, and certainly not big or joyful enough to run a daycare in. Besides that, AP wanted to work from home, so he expected her to keep quiet or get a job somewhere. She struggled to find something to do until she was desperate for more income and accepted a job working at a gas station. OP, what happened to you seems like a classic case of the grass is always greener on the other side, except your wife didn't plan to leave you. She just wanted to have fun in the yard without losing what she valued most in her life. When she was caught, she had the nerve to be upset with you, because you figured out what she was trying to do. I am proud of you, OP. You didn't overreact or act brashly. You didn't fall for your wife's trick and caught her red-handed. I'm glad you had support and refused to become a lesser person by acting out in violence. I feel like your wife would have begged you to take her back if she thought there was any chance, but you respect yourself too much to stoop to her level. You outsmarted and outbehaved her in every way. Thank you for being an excellent example on how to handle an unfaithful spouse. I wish you the best of luck in life. Now let's jump into our second story for today. I started dating a funny, gorgeous girl that worked as a dog groomer at her aunt's business. I was so committed to this girl that I started volunteering there. I would sweep up dog hair and do anything else they needed me to. Her aunt loved me, and looking back now, I think she would have dated me if I gave her the chance. She watched us, teased us lovingly, and offered support overall. Her niece became my girlfriend, and after 2 years, I was seriously considering marriage. We hadn't moved in together officially, but she was going back to her apartment less and less frequently. That is, until everything changed. She started going back to her apartment more often, just before I picked out a ring. I asked her right away why this was happening, but all she told me was that she needed alone time to focus on her online courses, YouTube channel, and reading. I wondered why she couldn't do that with me at my place. She seemed so certain that she needed this, and the last thing I wanted to do was push her farther away by being controlling. However, after a week of this, I was desperate for her to come back to me. I went over to her apartment unannounced one Saturday night after waiting all day to hear from her. I used my key that she probably forgot she gave me and found her cooking dinner. She was very upset to see me and told me I needed to leave. She started saying some bull about needing privacy when I noticed there were 2 glasses of wine. Then, the toilet flushed and AP came out. He was confused and called her honey. It felt like I suddenly had a baseball in my throat. I told him I was her boyfriend, but then she interrupted me to say I was her ex. When I looked at her in disbelief, she said she told me she needed her space. I asked if that was supposed to mean the same thing as breaking up, because I was still planning to propose. She accidentally laughed. She was so surprised. I didn't want to stay another minute, so I went home. Over the next 8 months, I lived with my dog and cat and started participating in local group activities for emotional support. I never intended to be a loner, and I didn't want to believe all women would be like my ex was. Her aunt joined one of these groups, and she was so happy to see me. She was surprised to learn that her niece was no longer my girlfriend. She said she was still working with her, and just heard her tell a funny story about me a few days ago. I was confused, but figured she was lying to her aunt because she knew she liked me and didn't want to lose her job because of her betraying me. Her aunt was very upset for me and vowed to make this right. I told her it didn't matter much to me anymore. Plus, I was interested in another girl I met recently. 2 months later, I was sitting with this aforementioned girl in my living room, watching a movie, when there was a knock on the door. It was my ex, crying in the rain. She said her aunt fired her, and AP had cheated on her. She lost her place to live, and without anywhere else to go, needed me to give her a second chance. Before I responded, she said she was wrong for abandoning me after I showed her so much dedication and love. I said she was right, so I wanted to know why she was here. She was devastated that I was so short with her, and then she saw my new girlfriend. I told my ex I found a woman who is worthy of my trust, and I never wanted to see her again. Then I slammed the door in her face. I'm still with my new girlfriend and feel confident that she would love to be my wife. I wanted to share my story in the hopes that others would know it's not the end of the world when a loved one betrays you. It keeps spinning slowly enough for us to heal and find another love. Finding hope and becoming wiser is what makes it all worth it. OP, I am so proud of you for handling this experience so honorably. You didn't freak out or lose your mind, you just continued on living in your home with your pets. You sought out new support and people to communicate with, which helped you to move on and, as a bonus, get revenge on your ex. You deserve to have a pleasant and true relationship with someone that appreciates you. Your ex was cruel for playing with your emotions and simply saying she needed more alone time. That's not the same as breaking up, and her way of handling this was childish. She didn't want the confrontation, and perhaps didn't want to ruin her chances with you in case her new lover didn't work out. It's pretty obvious she didn't want to lose her job with her aunt, which is why she just lied about who her partner was. I'm so glad she showed up on your doorstep in tears after losing everything, only to have the door slammed in her face. She didn't appreciate what she had enough to keep it. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. Take care.